You are traveling through another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of gameplay and graphics. A journey into cult appeal, which toes the border between gallant and garbage. Your next stop? Michael Reynolds' interactive horror experience, Illbleed.
You know, this costume was supposed to read Horror Host, but in all honesty, it reminds me of the most terrifying thing that I can personally think of. A yuppie. Hey there, would you like to buy some life insurance? It's Halloween again, and, as usual, I have found something rather odd and curious. A system-exclusive game with a die-hard cult following, and as a Dreamcast collector, naturally, it caught my attention.
Illbleed, the second and final title from Crazy Games and Shinya Nishigaki, the same guys behind Blue Stinger, something else that, yes, I will probably review one day, is, well, how do I put it?
Weird. It's really, really weird.
I think the only real way to get across how strange this game is to, well, show you all just how wild it gets. The game opens on a high school student, Eriko Christie, delivering her essay on her fears in childhood, talking about how she became a fan of horror films from, being tortured by her father and his animatronic theme park nightmares.
You would think that this would put her off for life, but apparently it did the complete opposite. So much so that she is the head of her school's horror research club. You can tell whoever wrote this never went through any meaningful childhood trauma.
After her speech, Eriko is congratulated by her friends Kevin, Randy, and Michelle. And yes, they are talking, with top-notch voice acting.
That was great! I mean, you're the head of the Horror Research Club and
President of the Student Council.
Also, the voice of Kevin there is indeed Ryan Drummond, best known for being the original 3D era voice of Sonic the Hedgehog.
That actually has some bearing on the game, but we'll get into that in a few.
Michelle crashes into the conversation after missing the speech, with tickets to the hottest horror attraction of the season, Illbleed. She explains that she got them from
a Pepco promotion.
A Petco promotion? Play it again.
From a Pepco promotion.
Petco? Or was it Patco? Hang on a second. Does this game take place in New Jersey? Would explain a lot.
Anywho, the gang decide to go to the park in an attempt to survive and win $100 million. Well, all but Eriko, who is totes over the whole spooky amusement thing after her unhappy childhood. The rest bail, leaving Eriko alone with her ticket. Naturally, since this is the setup for a horror game, a few days pass and Eriko's friends have all gone missing, and their last known location was Illbleed.
Does anybody else remember the Horrorland miniseries of the Goosebumps books? Because right now, I am getting some serious R.L. Stine vibes.
Upon arriving to the park, Eriko is directed to the tutorial area and oh dear, this camera is terrible. It's way too close and doesn't let you properly see around corners.
Now, this you can change at any point during the game. However, I didn't figure it out until about halfway through my playthrough. Props for doing a great job of teaching me the controls.
Off the bat, you'll learn about the main mechanic of Illbleed, the horror monitor. With this device, you can scan your environment for points of interest, such as items, and most importantly, the traps laid about the park designed to end unsuspecting visitors. Using this in combination with your sensors, displayed across the top of the screen, is the key to survival.
Well, that and knowing horror story tropes.
Back in the hub world, you'll find the levels laid out in Cinema Zone, with each stage inside of a movie theatre playing a different Michael Reynolds production. It's a nice touch, admittedly, but do you know what isn't?
This game's habit of not explaining anything.
Cracking example, the first level. This one is called the Home Run of Death, and it tells the story of a father's pain and suffering after his baseball prodigy-to-be son was murdered in a hotel fire by a group of teenage arsonists. Even though he was disfigured by the fire, he stalks anyone who trespasses and murders them with a blowtorch. No, seriously, the game explicitly states blowtorch.
Basically, imagine if Gordon Ramsay went off the deep end.
And right about here is where the problem starts. See, it wasn't implied that I would lose the horror monitor and all of my tutorial items when I entered the level. So I barged right in, unable to scan anything, and died.
So this is clearly a game that, at least for the first playthrough, I would recommend the use of a guide. However, the issue I ran into is that nearly all of the guides on the internet are either incomplete or they're just really unhelpful. So what I ended up doing was finding the 2 most complete guides I could and just hoping for the best.
Right, so, take 2. I find the horror monitor at the start of the stage, tag some traps, and go hard at it, at least until I got to the awkward, flailing combat that made my insides hurt.
I appreciate that the year 2000 was a wild time, millennium and all, but surely we'd worked out 3D combat by this point.
For a start, the camera completely changes to this pulled back, overhead look, and the dodge is irritatingly a great way to get killed.
Oh right, I haven't mentioned the 3 health mechanics you have to manage in this game.
Firstly, like any game, you have your health, referred to as strength here. Simple enough, but in combination with that you also have a bleeding meter. If you bleed out too heavily, you die. And the issue is that when you start bleeding out, it's very hard to stop unless you stand perfectly still and waste an age. Finally, you have your heart rate. If this gets too high, Eriko will have a heart attack. And in combat, while trying not to get hit, using the dodge will raise your heart rate for every attack evaded.
It's like a sick joke. If you stand your ground and fight, you'll lose your health, blood, and patience. Or, if you try to get away and dodge, you'll have a heart attack.
You can also escape from most of the combat scenes by mashing B on a helicopter pad. That's here, inside a hotel. Okay. After you question the laws of physics in this place some more, I realised that this game is intentionally trying to be obtuse. See, this was a time where most games, even horror games, tried to be somewhat straightforward, but here the game is just being balmy. Why are there zombies in this hotel? Why is the place showing so little fire damage? And holy crapola, what is this?
Jimmy, it's time for practice. Get out to the training field now. Hey, you're not Jimmy.
I've been led to believe that drugs are very, very illegal in Japan, with some of the strictest laws worldwide. However, after playing this, I'm not so sure anymore.
To help you fight back against the park, you can upgrade your character with an operation. And the cutscene for that operation is absolutely baffling.
As the kids would say, it's very on brand.
Now, you'll probably want to do an upgrade before you deal with the boss of this stage, the aforementioned Hotel Blowtorch Nutjob. He's kind of annoying, to be honest. You'll notice that he has infinite health. That's because you're supposed to run away at this stage of the boss fight, and give chase into a maze. This maze is super annoying. It's not that hard to get around. Quite the opposite, in fact, since tapping the Y button brings up a rather comprehensive map. No, what makes it irritating is that Pizza Face here is constantly ambushing you, and your only option is to run. And just to add insult to wasted time, whenever he runs into you, you get completely turned around. It seems like a minor thing, but it's very disorientating in a concrete maze designed to look identical throughout.
And yes, I get it. That's the point. It's a horror game. But to be honest with you, it doesn't really add any tension. And all it really frankly does is just piss me off.
Eventually, you'll come to the halfway point. The public bathroom. In the basement. Because that's a thing in every subterranean maze, apparently. Sorry. Back on point, our baddie drags off Kevin, one of Eriko's friends from the opening scene, and now it's time to go and save him. Well, it is anyway after standing still for a bit to recover bleeding and lower Eriko's heart rate. The following fight is, well, honestly, it's not too bad. There's a clear pattern, even if that blowtorch is a full-on Flammenwerfer, and he's pretty straightforward. After rescuing Kevin, he becomes playable from the next level forward. But of course, we have to finish this particular movie first. After the encounter, Eriko gets out to, the ocean? And oh dear God, the game is trying to be a platformer. This scene is... okay. It's fucking awful. Yes, I finally said a big swear in a video on this half of the season, but no other word gets across how bloody wretched this bit is. This side on camera, the awkward controls, the dodge, this needed to be reworked.
Be kind to me, Susan. I'm but a small boy.
Finally, you get to the end and get the reminder that yes, this is a theme park, and that Eriko is a cold-blooded monster. Seriously, she sees the dude operating fuckface here and just snaps. She beats the poor bastard to death.
Jesus, Joseph and Mary, she straight up murdered that guy.
The level ends, and you get cashed out a prize fee based on certain parameters. Of course, it's a smart investment to upgrade your character and buy provisions for the next stage, which in this case happens to be called Revenge of the Queen Worm.
You know, I think I've seen this one on that website with the sad panda.
The second film is a bit more straightforward, since there's no traps to disarm. At the start of the stage, a monkey robs you of the horror monitor, leaving you stranded. But what this level lacks in cheap scares, it makes up for in, this. Yeah, this video is not going to go far in the algorithm. Well, at least if you play as Kevin, you get the same gag.
Surprisingly progressive for a game that's so 2000s it's singing "Oops, I did it again" in the shower.
This one outright starts in a maze, filled with killer worms and monkey ambushes. It's not that hard, but just like the last one, it's very annoying. Also, it's at this point you'll discover that Kevin is bloody useless, thanks to his crawling on the ground shtick. Just stick to using Eriko with some upgrades through the game. It'll be less of a headache. The plot of this film is a bit more out there compared to the last one. In a nutshell, a man made a fortune raising and selling, of all things, worms, which explains all the buggers wriggling around the maze. But when the market crashed out, he killed himself, leaving his prized worm loose, which in turn apparently killed everyone. Nice! It's a much shorter level, with a basic puzzle and more platforming, but the boss fight is at least a bit more readable. Plus, you rescue Michelle here, adding another character to the cast.
Don't think it isn't as weird as the last stage. This game is just getting started.
Throughout the stage, you are guided by the Worm Daddy's ghost, and at the end...
Rachel! I've missed you so. You appear to be okay. Oh, that's a relief. At last, we can be together forever. Let's go back to hell. Hey, you, young one! Thank you. I'll never forget your kindness.
So that happened.
Again, I remind you, the narcotic laws in Japan are incredibly strict, which makes me believe that these guys smuggled acid into the country in American VHS cases.
Third stage now, wood puppets. The plot of this one is... Okay, you know what? In this one, it doesn't matter, because it plays more on the park attraction aspect and just goes bananas. After an amusing trek with a few hidden scares, Eriko becomes an actual wood puppet, and gets thrown into a game show where she has to avoid lumberjacks and get to the end of yet another maze. Oh, and of course, you rescue Randy in the middle of all this. It sets up the puppets as being weak, but actually this is a super overpowered form. The spinning kick is absolutely lethal, making short work of any and all enemies that sneak up on you. I wish I could say the same about the boss though. After a hilarious little scene where you accidentally get to the finale faster than the staff can get the thing set up, you get treated to the most frustrating boss fight in the game. This tree is a pain in the neck and has got to be one of the most unpredictable patterns that I've ever seen. The only way to beat it, I'm convinced, is to cheese it in the corner and hope for the best. It's honestly a shame, because at this point the game was honestly starting to pull itself together and become a lot more competent.
This is one of those Dreamcast games that never made it to another platform. An Xbox release was planned, but ultimately scrapped due to the closure of Crazy Games and the untimely death of Nishigaki at 42.
Fourth up is my personal favourite stage, the Killer Department Store. Maybe it's my lifetime of working in both entertainment and traditional sales, but the story of a corrupt department store owner going bonkers and killing all of his customers in a everything must go 100% cashback sale strikes a very specific chord in me, and it certainly doesn't hurt that this is the most varied of all the stages. Just like a real store, it's broken up into departments, complete with specific traps, themes, and enemies unique to each area. There's even an evil cake, which frankly deserves to be my new channel mascot. It's really quite fun, barring two moments. The first is the mid-level boss, the living meat. See, to get past two overgrown cockroaches, you have to grab and feed them some beef, pork, or chicken. You can also eat the raw delights to recover all of your strength, so it's surprisingly useful stuff. However, whatever you don't feed to the bugs or consume yourself will come to life and fight you on a giant hibachi grill. Now, this isn't too bad, at least the first time, but if like me, you try to get smart and stock up on some for later in the stage, you'll have to redo the fight with everything that you just picked up, which becomes an absolute disaster of a battle.
It's one of the biggest aha style traps I've ever seen in a game like this. It's designed to take advantage of players like me who, through a little bit of smarminess, thought we could outsmart the game. Kudos, you absolute bastards.
Oh, and if you try to get past without any food, the game bugs out and it just won't let you. So no matter what, even if it's just one bit of meat, you have to do this fight. Ho hum. The second irritating moment comes in the latter half of the stage, in the toy section. You meet a sentient and rather disturbing doll called Marie, that's somehow spelt Mary, that wants to play a series of murderous games with you. The first two aren't too bad, with you dodging her in Jesus Wept, another sodding maze, and the second having you find her in a booby-trapped playroom. However, the third game, the jump rope, this here is why we can't have nice things. It's super finicky, and based on timing that's unique to each jump in the loop. I don't know who came up with this, but whoever you are, and wherever you are, I want you to know that I did eventually beat your bullshit, but I'm rather upset about it and would like to send you a strongly worded letter.
That is quite possibly the most British threat I have ever issued. So you know I mean business.
Ironically, the boss on this one is a bit of a meme. The owner of the store, Donald Cashman, is now a giant money spider in death and, naturally, has infinite health. But you'll notice that the camera here isn't in the usual combat mode. That's because to beat it, you have to sneak off behind the scenes, steal the remote, and destroy the thing by making it bash into the wall repeatedly. Amusing, short, but a bit anticlimactic after what was easily the best stage in the game. Penultimately, our 5th stage is based on the in-game universe Killer Man movies, which apparently had Eriko as a star in one of the sequels. At least that's what the manual says. Also, my god, this movie poster is so gloriously towing the line of a lawsuit with these name puns that it's just marvelous.
Too bad that the level is a bit shit.
It starts with a really long, detailed backstory into a fictional slasher, the Killer Man, who leaves a star-shaped mark on his victims' faces in a 1930s era rampage. It really sets you up for a Depression-era New York romp too, only to once again shatter the fourth wall and put you into a modern movie theatre. And then the back corridors of Illbleed. Maybe these two can explain what's going on.
At this point, I'm half expecting the Shiba Inu from Silent Hill 2 to pop up.
Chatting to the staff member is Jorg, a local journalist investigating the park. Apparently the ride has malfunctioned, and something, or someone, is killing people in the style of the fictional Killer Man. This stage really takes the illusion blurring nature of the game and kicks it up a notch, with you trekking through the back halls of Illbleed to try and work out who has stolen the Killer Man costume and who is picking off the park inhabitants one by one. It's a good idea for a stage, but after all that build-up, it feels like a bit of a letdown. Almost like it should have been the finale stage before the final encounter. Even Jorg is kind of a drag, becoming a deadweight really quickly once you get deeper into the level, which is in, for the love of God, a giant maze full of dead bodies.
Whew, what died in here?
Just about everything, duh. It's a morgue, silly.
A morgue?
Yeah, where they keep the stiffs. Illbleed is full of dead bodies. More than 100 visitors die in this park every day. This is where the bodies get burned and forgotten.
Oh, and to hell with Jorg being a playable character. He's a secret extra, but I couldn't find him. Or rather, I couldn't be bothered to find him in what must be the billionth maze, and instead just focused on dealing with the boss. Not hard, not easy, just so-so. Boo. That said, what's next has become so infamous, so quotable, that I'm ashamed it took me this long to talk about it.
This final level deserves a little backstory. See, Illbleed was made partially in response to the very harsh criticism that their first title, Blue Stinger, received, but also it was very much made to be an antithesis to the family-centric moral culture of the late 90s. Basically, buckle the fuck up.
Toy Hunter. Where the hell do I begin with Toy Hunter? Instead of playing as Eriko, this time around we get to play as Cork, a bearded, thinly veiled piss-take of Pixar's Woody. No, really, take off the beard and you get this. It's not exactly subtle, is it?
Not that this game understands the concept of a light touch. Also, I want to mention something. See, during this particular stage, use the horror monitor not only to identify traps, but also to identify story points. Little cutscenes which advance the story and let you know what's going on with Cork. Now, I kind of messed up in my playthrough. I just started scanning everything and anything and disarmed half of them. However, after talking to a friend, I watched a long play of the level and goddamn, I missed out. Now, I don't want you to miss out, so using some properly credited YouTube footage, I'm going to show you exactly what happens.
Cork is a simple doll. He likes his owner, he likes his life, and he likes his sexy doll.
Oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, it's the Susan alarm!
So, what do you do when your owner dies and gets buried with your booty babe? Simple! You go to hell. How do you get to hell? By committing every sin in the book. Cork murders and cheats his way to jail, escorted there by Lightning McQueen? Huh, nice prediction there, Crazy Games. Cork goes to jail and gets the death penalty, but thanks to a crazy sub-adventure with a Buzz Lightyear wannabe, he ends up trying to, well, that got dark.
Look, I'm just faffing around. I want you to keep in mind that this game was made during the turbulent, unconventional lifespan of the Dreamcast, and that this whole thing, besides being an iron finger salute to the entire industry, was Crazy Games getting their frustrations out from this unpredictable and wild time.
Cork gets himself a new owner, and then promptly murders the child so he can be buried with the couch potato and get sent to hell. Reunited with Sexy Doll, Cork has to take on his final challenge, Satan himself, Zondik the Hellhog. Yes, this is about as subtle as a ram raid. Yes, this is clearly a giant fuck you to Sega. Yes, I absolutely love everything about this. This fight isn't that hard, but it sure as hell is memorable. You beat him by shooting his power hexagons, and my god, I love this whole ridiculous scenario. Hell, as it turns out, is corporate mascots.
And then you all wonder why I don't like costumed characters. By the way, it's been 2 sodding years since my childhood trauma video, and I still get comments about that.
Returning to the park is a little bit jarring after all that. And it doesn't help that now it's time for one last boss fight and a shot at $100 million. Reynolds, from the shadows, gives you a choice of 3 creatures. A functional Cashman spider, which is supposed to be the easiest option but was just irritatingly unpredictable to me, the Oh No Man, who is tough as nails, and really? Bull Stinger?
More like bullshit!
This is supposed to be the hardest of the lot, but honestly, I found it to be quite easy. The pattern is pretty obvious, and his moves are easily telegraphed. Finally, after gunning down the last enemy, Eriko and friends enjoy their freedom from the park. But Eriko isn't happy. She vows to return to Illbleed, setting up the true ending of the game.
Now, I would love to carry this video on into that second playthrough. However, 2 things. Firstly, this year I'm a little short on time. Sorry, I haven't got the time to play this game again, so it's just not in the cards. Secondly, see, in this New Game Plus mode, there's a certain special feature.
To get the true ending, on the second playthrough, you have to fail to save Eriko's friends. And when you fail to save a friend, a bit of her clothing is ripped off. By the end of the game, she is basically naked, with some strategically placed rags and dirt. But it turns out that, yes, in the most obvious twist, Reynolds is indeed Eriko's father, and it even sets up a sequel that never happened. There was even a bonus screen for Japanese players that, if mailed off to Crazy Games, they got sent a limited edition Eriko figure. Nowadays, that figure fetches a hefty price on sites like eBay and is considered a major collector's item.
Now, to be honest with you, I'll probably play the game for a second time for that true ending in my own time. On some weird level, I actually kind of like this. It's definitely unpolished, it's definitely unfinished, but I can't help but feel that that Vaporware Xbox release should have ever been released would have fixed most of these problems. As far as do I recommend it, honestly, this is not a cheap game. I'm going to put some eBay prices on screen right now. So it's honestly one of those things that's just, I don't know, if you're a die-hard collector, go for it. Otherwise, I don't know, maybe not. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a dinner reservation at Dorsia. Si urchin ceviche. Ciao.